Hey, it's NPR's Book of the Day. I'm Andrew Limbong. Like a lot of folks, I watched every Olympics clip that came down my timeline a few weeks back when the games were on. But what really caught my attention was the world surrounding the games. You know, the incredibly fit athletes in a big city with co-ed dorms. It's the perfect setting for a romance novel. But British novelist Rufaro Faith Mazarura went looking for a few when working on her own sports-themed romance and couldn't find many.
I was like, there must be loads of these. This is like the biggest sport event in the world. I feel like sports romance is having a boom, and it's been having that boom in the past 4 years.
But it's like only hockey.
It's all hockey,
like, let's diversify.
There's so many sports. So I think maybe it's just a moment that we're going to feel a shift because I'm seeing more and more sports romances, and hopefully there's loads of Olympic romances because I love it.
That's her talking with Waylon Wong from Planet Money's The Indicator about her new debut novel, Let the Games Begin. They talk about why the Olympics make good fodder for romance right after the break.
This message comes from Homes.com. What kind of programs does this school have? How are the test scores? These are all things parents ask when they home shop. That's why each listing on Homes.com includes extensive reports on local schools. Homes.com. We've done your homework.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Bluehost. Try Bluehost Cloud, the hosting plan made for WordPress creators by WordPress experts. With 100% uptime, fast load times, and 24/7 support, your sites can handle high traffic spikes. Visit Bluehost.com.
All right, before we get into it, the International Olympic Committee is actually pretty strict with their copyright. Even when NPR covers the Olympics, there are all these rules as to what we can or can't do. Later on in this interview, Rufaro Faith Mazarura talks about trying to write around these rules. But first, she explains the premise of her novel.
Let the Games Begin is a rom-com that follows two characters, Olivia and Zeke, over the course of one summer that they spend in Greece for a fictional version of the 2024 Olympics. So Zeke is a 100-meter sprinter on Team GB, and he comes into the village super excited, and everybody is hoping for him to win a gold medal. But he's also struggling with the grief of losing his father 10 years ago, who was his first coach. So he spends the summer trying to navigate grief and anxiety. And then Olivia comes to the Olympics as an intern working for the Olympic Organizing Committee. And so essentially she's here for this job that she spent her whole life dreaming about and planning towards. But when she arrives, she finds out that her job has been given to somebody else. And she kind of malfunctions. She really struggles with the whole process. But the book follows them when they meet together. They bump into each other. They don't like each other at the beginning, but over the course of the book and over the course of the summer and the Olympics, they start to fall for each other and navigate their little quarter-life crises together.
How long had you had this novel or the idea for this story, living inside you, burning like the Olympic torch?
I've always really enjoyed watching the Olympics. So I grew up watching all the Olympic opening ceremonies with my family, and I would spend all day watching the gymnastics or the running and stuff because everything would be on simultaneously, and I loved it. But when the Tokyo Olympics happened in 2021, I kind of became hooked with the idea of the village. I'd watch TikToks of athletes talking about what life was like inside of the village. I'd watch interviews, I'd read articles, and I just thought going into it, I thought, oh, so it's going to be really strict diets, really strict routines. Everything's going to be very, very serious. But people were talking about waiting in queue at the world's biggest McDonald's or the friends they were making across the village. And I just thought to myself, wow, the Olympic Village kind of feels like a university campus filled with thousands of really incredible, really athletic, really successful people from all around the world. That should be a rom-com. Couldn't find it, so I decided to write it.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that there aren't more romances set at the Olympics because for all the reasons you mentioned, it seems like such a rich vein of possibilities. You have incredibly attractive people from all over the world in peak physical condition. They're thrown together, again, in this college dorm environment. Emotions are running high. I'm how are there not 150 romances set at the Olympics?
It's so wild because I'm the meet cutes are happening every single day. What about the enemies to lovers are the people who compete in the same sport but see each other every, not even 4 years, all throughout the year. And yeah, I just think it's such a fun setting. I think it's a nice closed environment too because a lot can happen and people can keep on bumping into each other because it's not a whole city or a whole country. It's one very select place.
And in your novel, Zeke and Olivia are from Great Britain, but then Zeke's best friend is a Japanese swimmer, and then his ex is an American gymnast. So I could tell you were able to just pull people from all parts of the country because it would make sense that they would be close to each other and they would all be in the same place.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was like, how many countries could I include? Like, I have a running list somewhere, like a Google Doc, where I was like, okay, I've included Japan, I've included India, I've included New Zealand. Like, I was trying to see how many countries I could get in, because I think it's really nice when you read a book and see yourself represented, even if it's just someone who's like an archer who just walks past.
And how did you choose a sport for Zeke?
Lots of thought went into this, but the biggest thought that went into this was like, what sport can I do that everybody will understand and it doesn't feel like a barrier for someone who isn't that into sports or isn't that into Olympics? And I was like, everybody runs. Many people have some experience of having tried running, whether it's like running at school, not really wanting to, running at the gym. I just thought I wanted something that felt almost universal and that like almost felt like a metaphor. So like, I think at some point in the book, I have Zeke say that everyone's either running towards something or away from something. And I was like, okay, this people will get what I mean. It would have been much more difficult to get that same idea across if I was like archery, like everyone's like going towards an archer. Do you know what I mean? I was like, everybody knows about running.
And then for your own novel, you get to imagine what your opening ceremonies would look like, right? You get to design your own.
Yeah, it was really fun, especially because I decided to set the book in Athens because obviously Greece is the home of the ancient Olympics. So I would just like research things about like Greek culture and think to myself like, okay, what would they want to like highlight? I know that they had the Athens Olympics in 2004, so I didn't want to replicate that because it's like, this is Rufaro's Olympics. So yeah, it was fun to just create that and trying to make it feel visual on the page. And like one of my favorite things that I did in the book was kind of show the perspective of people from all around the world watching the Olympic ceremonies. So I'd be like, it's 2 p.m. in Dubai, it's like 11 a.m. in France. Those time zones aren't right, but like all of these like showing like how people are watching it from different places in the world, because it's the one, I can't think of any other thing that we watch that is truly watched all around the world. Like the Super Bowl, it's pretty much like it's mostly an American thing. World Cup, it's people who like football, but like everybody wants to see their country and see their flag. So it was really fun to write that.
I have to say those details, because you do it again near the end of the novel, where you zoom out and you go into these little vignettes around the world of people enjoying the Olympics in their home countries. That really stood out to me as someone who reads a lot of romance. Usually in romance, it's so tightly focused on the point of view of the two protagonists who are falling in love that you almost never get anywhere into the POV of anyone else. And so, I don't know, it really struck me when I got to those sections and then you brought it out. And I think I kind of like felt what you were going for.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's like my favorite part of the book. It's got nothing to do with the plot, but I'm like, I love this bit.
Now, were you tempted to mention the cardboard beds in your novel, or did you think that would be like too cliche?
I was tempted to mention them, but like the funny thing about writing about an event that you know is going to happen soon is that it's very easy to make your work feel dated. Because I was like, what if I write about cardboard beds? Because I wrote this book in 2022. I'm like, what if I write about them and by 2024 that's not a thing and it feels like out of date and someone's reading it July, August 2024 thinking like, that's not a thing, like why would you write that?
Yeah, I was going to make like an only one cardboard bed joke because I do like that trope in romance.
It should have been a thing. There's like an alternate world where this book is about two athletes and there is only one cardboard bed, but you know, we've got a whole life to write more.
Yeah. And so kind of like getting into the meat of why we contacted you for an economics show of all things to talk about your novel. How much did you know about the IOC's protection of its intellectual property, like before going into this process and like writing about a real world event?
It's interesting because I hadn't really factored that in when I was writing it, because in my head it almost felt like the IOC was a government as opposed to like an organization. And like I could write anything about Parliament in the UK. I could write anything about like the American like political institution. Yeah. Because it's like a democratic thing. But then as I went into edits for this book, I was like, oh no, this is an organization. I can't just use their name. I can't just say these things because it could have real life consequences. Maybe like on my book, but really just like I wouldn't want to write something that implies that an organization is one way if they're not. So that was like a really interesting thing to think about as the book went on. Luckily, we were able to avoid it by not writing about the IOC. I wrote about the OOC. It's my own fictional Olympic organizing committee. It's completely different to the International Olympic Committee. So yeah.
Is this a note that you got from your editor, maybe after a consultation with the legal department at your publisher where it kind of word floated back that like, oh, we'll have to change the name of the fictional IOC?
Yeah, and it came quite late on in the editing process where it was like, we just like checked this to see if it was okay because I'm not saying anything bad about them. And they're like, just avoid it. Like, they're probably not going to sue a 26-year-old rom-com writer, but like, you don't want to write things that feel like unsubstantiated claims about an organization, because if I picked up a book and I was like, oh, she said that this like organization is this, and this, like I would kind of take that in as not fact, but it would like affect the way that I see that organization. So yeah, I was happy to change it.
I mean, I actually sat up straight at the first mention of the Olympic Organizing Commission, not just because I was kind of reading with the intellectual property stuff in mind, so then I was like, oh, she changed the name of it, but because the first mention of it is Zeke's very politically active, radical cousin who comes in real hot and is like, oh, the Olympic Organizing Commission is basically like a neo-colonial institution. And I thought, oh, I bet this is why they couldn't call it the IOC, because it's like that's like the first introduction to this organization. You're like, woo, that's hot.
Yeah, creating a whole new organization like allows me to make statements and allows my characters to vocalize ideas about international organizations with more freedom. So yeah.
And then what other kinds of copyright or trademark considerations did you bump into maybe as you got further along in the process, designing the cover, writing the back cover copy and the text that goes with all your marketing materials? Can you walk me through what that was like?
I think we ran in with like a few just having to make smart, balanced decisions when it came to how we used the word Olympic. So throughout the book, it's there all the time. Like it's a book set at the Olympics. But on the front cover in the UK and the back cover in the US, we just avoided using that language, just because if this was about like, I don't know, shopping at Target, I wouldn't put like, this is a Target love story, because it's like Target owns the name. Do you know what I mean? It would be implied. I'd be like the red circle tote bags and like as she walked through with a trolley, do you know? But just trying to avoid using the name on the copy, because in a way I would be getting a benefit from a name that isn't mine, which isn't something that I would feel comfortable with, and I don't think they'd feel comfortable with.
So it's like anywhere in the text of the novel, totally fair game, but then you just had to be very cautious of kind of like all the stuff that goes around it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I have one last question for you. Are you a Swifty?
Oh, did you read the book and see all the clear references? Yes. Yes, I am. And like, it's so funny because my editor will be like, is this a Taylor Swift reference? And I was like, I didn't realize it was. It's just the way that the inside of my brain works. So yeah.
It's like, because you fully internalized all these lyrics, so they just come out.
They just come out. And I was like, wait, like there's many I cut because I was like, this is too much. This is getting ridiculous.
Oh man. I really enjoyed all your Taylor Swift Easter eggs as a fellow Swiftie. And I would read a full series of novels set at the Olympics. So if you write anything else, I will be there.
Oh, thank you.
That was Waylon Wong of Planet Money's The Indicator podcast, chatting with novelist Rufaro Faith Mazarura. We'll see you tomorrow.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Rosetta Stone, an expert in language learning for 30 years. Right now, NPR listeners can get Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership to 25 different languages for 50% off. Learn more at rosettastone.com/NPR.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Mint Mobile. From the gas pump to the grocery store, inflation is everywhere. So Mint Mobile is offering premium wireless starting at just $15 a month. To get your new phone plan for just $15, go to mintmobile.com/switch.